From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, this is a Headache Soul production. Welcome to Just the Tip-Sters, America's favorite true crime podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Morgan, and with me today is the award-winning Angelique Perrin. Say something, winner.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I want to know about both awards from this week. I mean, she's, she literally just can't even walk out of her house without somebody giving her an award for something.
Yeah, but that sounds good. I'll embrace that with some money. That'd be beautiful. She just can't walk out of the house without somebody giving her a load of cash to fund one of her projects.
Yeah, that's good. But I mean, in the meantime, tell me about your awards. Yes.
So, last fall, it was actually right before Rita Moreno's 90th birthday. I produced an interview with her for the NPR station that I work for here in Los Angeles. Rita Moreno, for those who don't remember and didn't grow up on Electric Company, she was one of the cast members, the one at the beginning who yelled, "Hey, you guys!"
Yeah.
And of course, she was also Anita in West Side Story. And so this interview was coming, like days before her 90th birthday and right before the new Steven Spielberg West Side Story. And she was just buck wild. She was just exactly what you would expect from a 90-year-old woman who has lived a full life.
All of it.
I mean, she dished on Marlon Brando. She was like, honey, the sex, the. I was like, this woman is... Oh, she was just amazing. I wish that, we weren't doing in-person interviews at the time.
Right.
So unfortunately, I didn't get to meet her. But that particular segment won me a Gracie Award. So I went to New York to accept a Gracie Award with my beautiful guest, my mommy. And then
I saw the picture on the runway or the red carpet, you and Joyce. Yeah.
And then I came back to L.A. and was nominated to win at the LA Press Clubs. And so the Press Club Award. And so I'm there with my colleagues from the radio station, and I look and there's this cute little lady, and I was like, is that Rita Moreno? And one of the young reporters on our team was like, Angie, like yanking my arm. You got to take a picture. You have to tell her the reason that you're here is because of her. And she dragged me. I'm a little shy. I'm a little not into, dealing with people. I mean, that child dragged me onto the red carpet and was like pushing me like we were jumping rope. Just jump in, just say hi. And so I got a picture with Rita Moreno, and then I won.
Pretty cool.
I won as well.
Even cool. Yeah, that's even cooler.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
That's so nice. You get to talk to the person who, is the impetus for the two awards. I mean, you're the winner and because of your quality of work, but that's very awesome.
It was cool.
How many of us, get to meet a real EGOT?
She is an EGOT.
Yeah. Isn't there just like a small, like maybe 16 or something, a small number of EGOTs?
Hey Siri, will she answer me?
My phone's turned off, but it doesn't matter. I was going to say, let's just talk to anyone who's in the ethers. Hey, whoever, how many EGOTs are there? That was a while ago that I looked it up. There might be more now, but it's such a small group, and she's like truly a living legend. I did not know she was 90. I did not know at all.
Yeah, and she is spectacular. Netflix actually has a documentary on her.
Oh.
I want to say it's from 5-6 years ago because I think she was turning 85
at
that time. And it follows her. And if you're a fan, and even if you're not a fan and you're just looking for kind of an inspirational story of someone, she's great.
Yeah.
I
think that would be fascinating.
Inspirational as an artist, as a woman, as an immigrant. It's just a good story.
Done it all. Yeah. And so apparently authentic and honest and talks about Marlon Brando's dick. So, I mean, how many people can do that right now? Probably not a lot.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
I'm hoping not a lot. So I don't want to brag, but my friend Pam had me a tumbler made in the exact You should see Angie's face right now. Your mouth is down to your chin, to your chest. Is this amazing?
Okay.
I think I might have just put her award, both of them, but she did show me a physical manifestation of one award in the trunk of her car, because that's how much she cares about awards. And here I am holding a replica. Look at the glitter.
You have to understand, first of all, I walk in and I see the black cherry Mountain Dew Kickstart can there, and I'm mesmerized by it. And she says, "Do you want some water?" And I'm thinking, "Ooh, I feel like I want some black cherry Kickstart," because it's all sparkly and the can looks cool.
Yeah.
And I'm being lured in, and now she's telling me it's not a can.
It's a tumbler.
Now I'm looking at the little spout on top that you
cool?
drink from.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah. So a friend had it made for me, and it does actually contain Mountain Dew Kickstart Black Cherry. So it's almost meta. But yeah, she had it made for me for my birthday and gave it to me earlier this week. Her name is Pam. She has Pam's Boutique up here in Santa Clarita. And she found a vendor for one of her boutiques that makes these tumblers. And apparently this was a biatch to make like the, she has like the nutritional facts on the back. It looks like the can.
Like a real can.
I know. Except that it's glitter. It's you know, 3 shades of pink glitter. And she at first had the nutritional facts on the back in white, and she goes, I don't like that. And the woman had to redo it in silver. So I mean, it is kind of spectacular, isn't it? I mean, it's no, you know, Gracie Award or LA Press Club Award, but
that's beautiful.
Thank you. I just had to
Don't put it down anywhere.
Because it's going to go home with you. No. I will tackle a bitch, and I can run fast for a big girl. So don't try me. Do not try me, because I'll take you down for that one. So that's
great. I want some of those. I think Mom
Well,
would.
the girl who makes, I mean, here's what happened. Someone made one for her because she is a Diet Coke fiend. Mm-hmm. So she has one, like a 12-ounce can of Diet Coke. And then she was like, oh my gosh, Melissa's birthday, and had the same woman make this. And she's here, so you could have something made for Joyce.
Oh yeah, I'm doing that.
If she has like a favorite drink. It's just everyone knows I have a little bit of an addiction. And just so you know, I offer you water because you're a healthy human. If you ever want one of these, you can have it.
I know.
I got a big ass supply.
But I don't want to waste your stuff. I'm going to drink 3 sips.
And try it and hate it and put the rest on the drain. I don't care.
I'm going to love it. And then I'm going to be addicted with you.
And then you have to comb all the Dollar Trees. I have the Dollar Tree hookup. Nancy, one of the managers of a Dollar Tree, will text me and go, they're in.
You're like the bionic woman.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah. It's just like that. You can actually probably hear me making that noise. And then I get there and I'm like, where are they? And she's like, I have them in the back for you. She hides them in the back for me.
That's great.
I know.
You're going to get her fired, by the way.
No, I'm not. She's an amazing, wonderful person. Nobody listens to me. Definitely not the people at Dollar Tree. But so this is a really weird one. I know I gave you a little prep, but very little. It's super weird.
Okay.
I was alerted to this case from someone in law enforcement, and my theory was that we would debate it together.
You and I?
No.
Oh.
Me and the person in law enforcement.
Okay.
Because he thinks one way and I think there are other options. And it is a missing and presumed deceased LA County Sheriff's deputy.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it is, you know how I am. I'm tangible. And I know how much you hate the flipping of the pages, but there's 30 pages of notes.
Stuff there.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to keep it down to a dull roar. But how long do we have to record on that before it's like, shut up, Melissa?
It goes on to infinity,
For infinity
and beyond.
Okay. All right. So I'm calling this the original ghost from the term ghosting.
Okay.
Because he was an LA County Sheriff's deputy, and he, in our modern world, if you're, on dating websites or even just talking to your friends via text as opposed to in person, a lot of times you get ghosted. And that's a, in the last couple of years term that I've heard. And I didn't really embrace it. I was like, that's ridiculous. People don't do that, but they do. And they also give you mixed messages. And in this instance, he is like a guy you're dating who is that two-headed llama from Dr. Dolittle, like push me, pull you. He's very much like that in his life. He's very regimented in one way, and then in another way, he's very like loosey-goosey. Okay. So that's why there is a plethora of theories, and he was working at a time when once Lee Baca became the sheriff, it was basically the Wild West, and nobody checked in on anybody. And there could have been deputies that were not forthright. So he wasn't one of them. He was one of the good guys, but he could have had some mental issues that the theory is that he committed suicide. Pretty hard to imagine because there's no body. So it was a Thursday, June 11th of 1998. Jonathan Aujay, and it's spelled Aujay. Now, I would say Aujay because I'm fancy, but it's actually just pronounced OJ, like the guy that allegedly killed his wife and Ron Goldman. Anyway, Jonathan Aujay.
He was found not guilty.
I understand that. Do you want to talk about that one? Because I'll put up the Dukes. Let's just put up.
I don't. I mean,
yeah, I understand. Yeah. Justice was so done. Anyway, Jonathan Aujay, who is a LA County Sheriff's deputy canine officer and, was a paratrooper. He's very military, he was a sharpshooter, married, had a 5-year-old daughter, but he was an avid trail runner. So he pulls up to an area north of us, about 30 miles north of us, called the Devil's Punchbowl. It's in the Antelope Valley. And if you look at like a Google Earth image, here's the reason people are like, oh, he'll never be found. He fell or whatever. It's a lot of those crevices, and then there's a very large canyon. But there's a lot, you'll see. It's an outdoor nature preserve that a lot of people run and jog and hike on. Mm-hmm. It just, the circumstances of his missingness is too weird. It's just, all of it's too weird. He did things that would lead you to think one way, and then other things happened that would lead you, So he's 38 years old. He'd been married to his high school sweetheart for 12 years, and they had a 5-year-old daughter named Chloe. He, said to his wife, I'll be home by dark. And he left at about 11:45. And then they lived in the area. They lived in Palmdale. So he parks his truck, according to witnesses, and goes on a hike, and along the way sees several people who identify him. Backtracking, people have said those identifications were incorrect. He's preparing for a 100-mile endurance run that would be in Northern California and very mountainous terrain. And while he was doing that, that was 2 weeks away. He was he was running every day and trying to build up his endurance for this 100-mile endurance run in the mountains. He had qualified for the race like 6 months earlier. He had gotten together a team of people to help support him along this run. I mean, he was really, preparing for this. Right. And he's like this avid outdoorsman, hiker, all of this. Here's the other thing I'm just going to say, and it may seem like a small detail, but I can't help it. He gassed up his truck before parking it at the park, the Devil's Punchbowl area, and then went on a hike. If you're going to kill yourself, do you care if you have a full tank? I'm just going to say that right now. Okay. Yeah. So he takes off on this hike, according to the people who saw him. 2 employees of camps that are along the route said they saw someone. He's 6 feet tall. He's very lean, short, military style haircut. Okay. He's identifiable. He looks like a runner, hiker. He's very athletic and healthy, 38-year-old, very athletic, healthy man. There was a school group and a teacher who recognized him because he had brought his Belgian Malinois, Bosco, his canine partner, to the school and given a talk.
Okay.
And they were like, oh, there's, Deputy Aujay. So they stop and talk to him. He stops his run, talks to the kids and the teacher, and then goes on his way.
So he's been identified. That's definitely him. I mean, if a teacher and the kids say we know him and we saw him and we talked to him, then...
Well...
Okay, go ahead.
Later on...
I'm not going to jump the story. Just go ahead.
Okay, all right. So he's in a special elite group called the Special Enforcement Bureau. So they handle not only just the canine stuff, but the SWAT stuff. And, he's in this very elite group. It's not like he's a fuck-off employee. He's been a deputy for 17 years. Before that, he was an officer at, Cerritos Community College and then, became a sheriff's deputy. And, he and his family moved to Palmdale, and then, they have the daughter. And so here's the things that are a little bit weird. He is spotted at about 6 p.m. heading back to his truck by someone who worked at the park. He never arrives home. Mm-hmm. His wife then, is like, hey, where is he? Everyone's like, hey, you know what? He got lost. He broke an ankle. He's going to be fine. He is an avid outdoorsman, prepared all the time and loved to hike and just be out of doors. He'd tried to convince his wife to move to Alaska with him. He wanted to be off the grid. He's that guy. Mm. Now, here are the extenuating circumstances. He had started a relationship with a woman, Vicky DeVita, who was also an avid runner. He and his wife were in the midst of separating.
Okay.
They had gone to a counselor the day before he went missing, and it was said by everyone involved it didn't go well. But the first inclination of the counselor, she said, oh no, neither of them were suicidal.
Right.
She changed her mind later, years later.
How, like you remember? Years later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember yesterday's breakfast. So.
I don't remember today's breakfast.
So, I didn't have breakfast today.
Oh, well,
but
then
if
that's
I
why
had,
you wouldn't remember.
Then I wouldn't have remembered.
Okay, good. I don't feel alone. So, he tells his wife, I'll be back by sunset. Pretty weird. At that time, she had called a private investigator because she was like, I want to know if he's cheating on me. About a month before this, he had said, I think we need to separate. She suggests they use the sheriff's deputy's resources for a counselor. Mm-hmm. So they have this marriage counseling session. She had said that a month before that, they had an argument in the car, and he put his service weapon to his head and said, do you want me to kill myself? And she's in the passenger seat of the car, and she said it shocked her, and she began crying. The thing that is interesting is that when he left for the day, he said, have a good life, tell Chloe I love her.
According to her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But she still doesn't want to believe that he committed suicide. But he had begun to divest himself of things, which could be taken, hey, he's getting rid of shit because he and his wife are splitting up and he's starting a new life with Vicky, or he's getting rid of shit the way people who are going to kill themselves do.
What was he getting rid of?
Yeah. Great question, madam. He had given his girlfriend Vicky some of his running medals from races.
Whoa.
He had given his in-laws back a wooden shelf that held his running medals. I guess they had given it to him, and he had, taken it down and given that back to them.
So it's not like he's taking clothes and dropping them off at Goodwill. These are prized, cherished.
Right. He could have given them his medals to Vicky because he had told his best friend, I plan on moving in with her.
Mm.
So maybe he'd packed up his running medals because that was precious to him and gave them to her so she could have them in their new place.
Okay.
Now, I get it. This is 1998, but, he might be a little weird because they were getting closer, he and Vicky, and, he was, for all intents and purposes, separated from Deborah. But he said before they had sex, he wanted her to take an HIV test.
Yeah, I mean, when you were dating back then, that was not uncommon, actually. If you wanted to have unprotected sex and things were serious, that wasn't uncommon.
In 1998?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know that you'd ask it in 2022 because, they got Dovato now, virtually
right.
undetectable. But in the 90s, I mean, I have friends and family members who, when they got serious with their people, they were like, yo, you got to take out. Somebody asked me to do the full battery of tests.
And you said, okay?
I said, fuck you.
Okay, see, there you go. So I've only had one in my life, and it turns out I didn't need to have that. But I did it because of weird circumstance, and the very sweet person back when you took those, that would have been 92, said, okay, so let me just explain. Yeah, I was like worried. And she's like, let me just explain. And I thought that was sort of interesting that a medical professional told me I didn't need it, but I got one because of the person I was intimate with had died from a drug overdose. And I thought, oh no. But she explained it would have been, difficult for that. But anyway, yeah, I thought it was a little OCD, but maybe that in 1998, if you wanted to sleep with someone, you had them get all the. What happens now? Do you make them get a COVID test? Like you shove a
Yo, let me
Q-tip
see your
up?
Vax card.
Yeah.
You cute. Pull that mask down. Let me see your Vax card.
That's the world we live in. Oh my gosh. Okay. So because they know who John is, his coworkers, the LA Sheriff's Department are like, look, he's tough as nails. They're going to find him. He will have just hurt himself. He'll come stumbling out. But they do a pretty big search. They use infrared cameras at night.
Yeah.
They, have ATVs. They have search dogs. They use an Army Black Hawk helicopter that was from a nearby Air Force base. I mean, they really did. And even, they did look a lot. And even Vicky DeVita went with one of his friends, and because he had told her, I'm going to take a nighttime walkabout. So he tells her that. He tells his wife, I'll be back by dark. Conflicting, right? So Vicky takes his good friend, and they circle the Devil's Punchbowl at night yelling for him in case he's fallen and, he's unable to get out by himself. So after a week, a lieutenant who had seen his truck parked there said that his .38 Smith & Wesson revolver was in the middle console. So his gun's there, according to the first
lieutenant.
And then when they open his truck a week later, no one on the evidence list knows where his gun is. A detective said that his friend said he didn't typically go running with his gun, which is interesting. You would think he might, Although apparently he was a pretty, like hands-on kind of guy. His father-in-law said he frightened a 500-pound black bear one time when we were camping. Like just on his own,
Right.
making himself big and yelling,
Right.
So his father-in-law is like, look, he'll survive anything. He'll survive anything. So that is a big question for me, is the gun. Because it's been reported the gun just has never shown up.
Right.
All these years later. So they're looking, and then after 6 days, it's like he committed suicide.
Wait, how do we get from we're looking to he committed suicide?
That is the biggest question. That is the biggest question. And there are many people who are like, I've never seen a missing persons case go from he's missing to it was 6 days later. The official word is that he is missing, presumed dead from suicide.
I mean, missing, presumed dead, okay, but that second part
Suicide.
is like, why?
Suicide. To this day, apparently at the LA Sheriff's Department, there's a plaque, they have everyone's name and, their birth date and then, or the day they started, and then if they're, still around. His has the day he started, and then next to him is an infinity symbol. Because sheriff's deputies don't vanquish and are gone like pixels in the wind. That doesn't happen that often. Or ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no note. His gun is unaccounted for. He can survive in the outdoors. He was having trouble with his marriage, but, had a new relationship that he was, according to everyone, excited about starting.
Mm-hmm.
It's strange, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It gets more strange.
Okay.
And the mixed signals are crazy.
All right.
So because he was in the military, there are friends who are like, you know what? He returned to the military for a covert assignment. Oh,
Ooh.
okay.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
Then there's these theories that he actually, organized, structured this, and then moved to Alaska.
Yeah, I was going to say he wanted to be off the grid, so he's in Alaska somewhere.
Right. His sweet brother says, I look at the newspaper every day hoping that there'll be a picture of him in Buenos Aires and that he's fine. He said, I might be delusional, but that's how I feel. He had asked his wife, hey, would you consider going to Alaska? And she said, no, I'm not interested. So, maybe. So that's like, did he, stash money? Did he create a new identity? Did he stage his own disappearance? And his sister said the last time she saw him, he was miserable living in the Antelope Valley, and they were at a family wedding. And she said, this was 1 month before he disappeared. She said he was ready to go. He had checked out. He was done.
My question, though, because I've been checked out and ready to go, but why do it like that? You know what I'm saying? Why just pick up and bail? You got a 5-year-old.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. That is the lingering question. It's such a debate between the people he worked with, some of which are like, that's it. He did this. He killed himself and we're just not going to find him. And a small group of people he worked with, 2 or 3, who say he was murdered.
See, without him having some massive drug or mental problem, without him having millions of dollars in debt, without him being in some sort of legal scandal, there's no reason to fake your own death and leave. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's just easier just to divorce her and go on and move to Alaska if you want to.
And the point you made, everyone said he had such a close bond with Chloe that he would not have left Chloe.
Right.
Because things don't go well for Deborah and Chloe, and I'll explain that.
Oh, no.
Things do not go well. So Deborah says after their first meeting with the therapist, it's a sheriff's department psychologist. She goes, I thought he was just going through a rough time. I thought he'd be okay. The therapist, Elizabeth White, after she was questioned when he went missing, she said, I don't think either of them are suicidal. But then a few years later, she reversed her opinion and said, I think it was a suicide. So all the pictures of him online are very telling. He looks like a very unhappy, miserable man. I have found only 2 pictures of him smiling. So it looks like he had kind of one tooth in the front that was like a little darker, but not the kind of tooth where you would have to smile with your hand over your mouth. Everybody's got, imperfections. It wasn't like he didn't have teeth. Mm-hmm. There were 2 pictures where he is smiling, 2, and a lot where he's not only the original, the OG ghost from Ghosting, he is the original resting bitch face. Mm-hmm. He actually had like a crease in between his eyebrows.
At 38.
Yes, yeah, a deep crease from.
Interesting.
Like he was always scowling, So some of his coworkers were like, "Look, out of the respect for the position he had, he constantly was polishing his badge and his boots. You know, his older brother's like, I have never believed for 1 minute. He had too much pride in what he did.
Right.
His brother's like, if that happened, I'm going to put that on the back burner. I don't have to rule it out, but I don't think he had a zest for life, you know. And even though he was grieving the loss of his marriage, he was happy about the new relationship with Vicky. Now, she died in 2010.
Vicky?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A lot of people in this story are gone, and we can't talk to them.
Okay.
It's sort of weird. So there was his former captain, Mike Bauer. He's one of the ones still holding out to this theory that John was murdered.
Right.
There are two theories on the murder. One is that he stumbled upon a meth lab up in the Devil's Punchbowl area, and it's not unheard of.
Yeah. I mean, we all watch Breaking Bad.
That's exactly it. They said that rolling RV labs went around the Antelope Valley at that time.
I mean, there's still illegal stuff going on now.
I'm sure.
You know, they're always talking
I'm
about
sure.
them stealing our water to grow marijuana, so illegally.
I'm sure. We covered Monique Figueroa's case a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
You know, one last job she wanted to do, and that's in the exact area. Little Rock to Pear Blossom is the area that we're talking about. So, you know, it's like he stumbled upon this lab. Another theory is that corrupt deputies wanted to protect those drug dealers and the lab, and he knew too much, and they killed him. Now, Mike Bauer, he retired and moved to Montana, won't give up. He searches to this day properties that the deputies he feel are corrupt had access to.
Wow.
Yeah. He searches them with metal detectors and with human remains dogs. And I mean, it's interesting that he won't give up. And a large part of this comes from an LA Magazine article by Claire Martin, and she is a phenomenal journalist. I just had to say that.
Okay.
I mean, it's an amazing article. It's from November of 2015. If you have access to LA Magazine, not just if you live in the area, it's like the New Yorker. It's such a great resource. I mean, Michelle McNamara wrote an article about her theory about the Golden State Killer that she named the Golden State Killer years before the book.
Yeah.
And that article became the book.
Right.
I mean, they get these very unusual independent journalists. And this woman, Claire Martin, spent 4 years on this article.
Wow.
4 years. And what started her was the case that we'll get to at the end, because one of the people who investigated this was fired, and he filed a wrongful termination suit and won a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's theories that he stumbled upon a meth lab.
Okay.
There's theories that fellow deputies killed him because he stumbled on a meth lab and knew it. You know, there are people who are like, he was investigating it. There's really no proof of that, that he knew, had prior knowledge that there were meth labs and that there could have been deputies involved. It was at a time that was so tumultuous in the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
There was so much already going on. The then Sheriff Sherman Block had gotten the FBI to weed out shitty detectives. And I mean, shitty deputies. I mean, he went to the FBI.
I remember his name, but
Yeah, it was
don't
before
really
your
remember
time.
what
Yeah,
was
a long
going on
time.
with them.
I mean, we all know Lee Baca, who was,
Yeah, we know Lee
indicted.
Baca.
Yeah, So he was there too. So the first deputy that arrived at the scene said, I will go to my death saying I saw this .38 caliber Smith & Wesson in the center console. That is a huge red flag. No deputy would leave their gun visible in their car.
Yeah.
He said that was huge. That was huge, that you would never do that in case someone broke in and stole it and then they have your service weapon. And, it's like Later on, another detective said, "Oh, you know what? My recollection is we just could never account for that revolver." Right. I feel like that's pretty huge.
I do too. When you said his gun was in there, I was like, that's like leaving your purse. And I guess a lot of people do it, but somebody's going to break in and take it.
Would you leave it visible?
No.
Right. And if you're
You wouldn't. You'd
in
put
the
it under the
right.
seat, you throw it under a blanket, you put it in a trunk, you'd hide it.
Right. Right. So why would this deputy insist? I saw it there. That was a huge red flag. And why would they take 6 days to open up the truck and then suddenly that gun is gone?
Right.
Now, Mike Bauer has a theory John never made it there. He was killed, his body was put somewhere, and someone else drove his truck and parked it there.
Whoa.
Yeah. That is why.
So where did he stop before then?
Well, we know he went and got gas.
We do know that.
That's it. He told his wife, I'm going for a run. I'll be back before dark.
See, that's why I don't run, Melissa Morgan. Right there.
Oh my God, why would anyone run?
Bad things happen.
Right. I wouldn't run if you were chasing me with a knife.
But you'd run if I was running away with that black cherry can.
Yeah,
right?
I'd kick your ass. I'd run you down until I couldn't breathe. That's different. But if you were chasing me with a knife, I'd be like, just make it quick, Angie. I've had a good life. Just get it over with.
Oh, stop it.
I don't want to run. But if you take my black cherry tumbler, it's on like Donkey Kong. Yeah.
So there's a thought that he never made it to the
I feel like that
Punchbowl.
is the weirdest theory. But it's also someone who won't give up. It's his ex-boss, Mike Bauer.
But stories are changing. But one story that I feel good about is that teacher and her kids.
Okay, so let me tell you that. She described him as having long hair.
Oh.
A theory, and he had a flat top all his life. It was June. You know what it's like in the Antelope Valley. It's
sweltering.
It's the surface of the sun. The theory is he was wearing a Charlie Brown hunter's cap with the ear flaps. And that's what she remembered. He would wear that to protect his neck from sunburn. Yeah. So the theory is he was wearing that and she mistook that. I'm like, is the teacher 1,000 years old? Is the teacher blind? She shouldn't be hiking around the Devil's Punchbowl with kids if she's blind. But she described him as having a shoulder-length hair. Mike Bauer thinks all of the people that identified someone who looked like him, it was misidentification.
But
Yes, Miss Perrin?
But if I change my hair, which I've done 1,000,000 times,
Right.
as you know,
Right.
that doesn't mean I don't recognize you, because especially if we have a conversation.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I can't say that, except the only thing I can attribute that to is the camp workers identified a man with short hair who was a runner, it looked like athletic avid runner, brown hair. He could look like 1,000 people could look like him. And it was a very well trodden track. The teacher, you're right, is kind of an outlier.
If I know you, I know you. I don't not know you based on whether your hair is long or short.
I get what you're saying, but when he goes missing and they put out the word, perhaps, I don't know, let's call her Mrs. Crabapple. So Mrs. Crabapple, sees someone and talks to him, and maybe it's just someone who's like, oh yeah, hi, nice to see you, or something. I don't know all the details. The file, as you can imagine, pretty closely guarded.
There's like 2 of them and they're that thick.
Angie's holding her fingers very far apart. Yeah, I would imagine, because within a week they get tips that say that guy was offed because he knew about meth labs.
Wow.
Many informants come forward.
Well, that's
Changes things.
yeah.
Many informants come forward, and over the years, most of those informants have been proven to be wrong, or they were caught in other lies. Do you see why this is the push me, pull you case? Informants came forward and said, I saw him murdered. A woman came forward and said that guy found our lab and he will not be heard from again. Now, of course, there was a subsequent, investigation, and Deputy Joe Holmes ran down all those suspects, all those informants, and said none of that was true. Yeah, a lot.
All right, keep going.
So
you got me intrigued.
So John could have had some mental issues.
Okay.
He was a sharpshooter because of his time in the military. And there was a suspect who was firing at police from behind a cinder block wall at a gas station. And he exchanged gunfire, and Aujay killed him with a shot through the side of the building.
Okay.
He found out that he had a daughter the same age as Chloe, and he was completely guilt-ridden, even though it was, someone who's death by...
He had to.
I know.
Do that.
I don't think it was for him.
Yeah.
Another time he was on a rooftop when a gunman pointed a semi-automatic pistol at a hostage, and as he pressed the barrel to the victim's head and cocked the hammer, Aujay squeezed the trigger of his rifle and he killed him. And that was so traumatic to him. Here's this guy, his partner, Dave Rathbun, says he's this very severe military guy and he seems like a hard ass, but he's just a big marshmallow underneath. When he had to take a human life, he was so affected by it, as most police officers are, but he had nightmares, would wake up like sweating and shaking, and he asked to be transferred to the K-9 unit.
Wow.
So he had this 7-year-old Belgian Malinois named Bosco, who was his constant K-9 companion. And it's, he said, I much prefer having a K-9 companion as a rifle companion. So that lets you know. So typically a K-9 officer is kept at the handler's home. So they got Bosco a week after he, went missing, and they keep him boarded at a kennel in Riverside. And 2 weeks later, Bosco dies. He was 7.
Of a broken heart? What happened?
A spokesperson for the sheriff's department said that he died of a ruptured artery. But John's wife, Deborah, her mother said he died of a broken heart. They were completely linked. Now I'm going to tell you something else. A deputy we don't know his name later on is accused by Mike Bauer, who was John's, supervisor at the time, of killing the dog.
Why? I mean, why would you go kill a dog? The dog knows nothing.
Because the dog was bonded and tied to John and was, in his words, a public nuisance. So when the reporter, Claire Martin, says, Mike Bauer said that you killed the dog. And he said, I would never kill a dog. I did instruct the kennel to euthanize the dog, though. 2 weeks after he's gone.
Why?
Because he said the dog had bit people, and if it was not under John's control, couldn't be controlled. And he said that dog needed to be put down.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the meantime, there are groups of meth dealers in the area known as the Untouchables, because deputies are involved. I mean, this is terrible to say, but the FBI did like a sweep of the LASD because they're in charge of that unincorporated area. A detective that was assigned to the narcotics team was arrested for hiding $150,000. Sherman Block, the sheriff back then, called the FBI and said, transparency has to be my motto. There was so much going on and so much found out, but I feel like they did the best clean sweep they could do.
Right.
For people who were, making money. It turns out like there were some deputies' wives who were involved. And I mean, there's so many theories I can't even, So this deputy named Rick Ingalls is the first person who is thought to be a suspect in John Aujay's missing persons report, and that he could be the person who ended his life. It's a terrible thing to say. And Mike Bauer is like, look, I want to help clear him if he didn't do anything. He has been very responsible for clearing out a lot of meth labs, so he's done some good work.
Right.
He lived not far from where John went missing, like 6 miles.
Okay.
And he was the, the resident deputy of the area.
Okay.
And when John Aujay goes missing, he doesn't search for him. Maybe he was busy all those days. I don't know.
Maybe they weren't. Well, I mean, I think he would still search.
Right.
Even if you guys don't get along.
Right. And that's another thing. Thank you for pointing that out. He was not warm and fuzzy. He had very few friends in the sheriff's deputies, quarters, because he was like, you're not part of my personal life. Let's not talk.
Right.
He put up this, either he put up a big facade or he was, he had mental issues, where he was not friendly.
Well, you said he didn't smile, so.
2 pictures. One is with when he had won a race and he's bent down and his daughter's next to him. And one other picture when he was quite young. The rest of them are just, it looks as if he's just sucking lemons every day of his life. Mm. So one deputy starts to investigate. And he shows up to his superior and says, look, I need a search warrant so we can look through Rick Ingalls' home. And his superior says, I'm ordering you, you're not going to take this search warrant to a judge. And if you do, you're not going to work here any longer.
So no search warrant for Ingalls.
Mm-hmm. So when I said that things didn't go well, because John's body was never found, Deborah couldn't get any of his
insurance and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh. For 5 years. She and Chloe live in the house for a year. Mm-hmm. She then moves in with her parents. By 2013, both of her parents are gone. She gets $950 a month from Social Security for her own mental illness, and she's living in her car.
Wow, how do you get there that quick?
I don't know that it was that quick.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's 98, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
But...
She'd been in her car since 2013 when both of her parents had died.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Chloe was living with her boyfriend and his mother. And spoiler alert, Chloe died in 2020 at the age of 26, a month and a half before her 27th birthday.
Dang, what happened?
Have no idea. It was, March of 2020. Maybe it was COVID.
Yeah.
Very young. It could happen. I just found her obituary. She lived in Idaho Falls, Idaho. And as far as I know, Deborah's still alive, but Chloe's not. There's a lot of people in this story who are not alive anymore. Deborah lives in the Antelope Valley. She parks outside of a 24-hour fitness. She joined the gym so she can take a shower. She sleeps with her sunglasses on because the parking lot's fluorescent lights affect her. She said, and this was 2015, doing this for a long time would not be good, but she'd already been there 2 years. I can't find anything about her right now.
What is her mental thing?
OCD, severe OCD. Mm. She had worked in an office before she got pregnant with Chloe, and after she had Chloe, she stayed home with her, and she qualified for Social Security. She gets $950 a month. Right. So Claire Martin, the reporter, finds her and, says, let's take a look where you used to live. The Devil's Punchbowl. They drive around. Deborah, would never believe he committed suicide, but 5 years later said maybe he did so that she could get some sort of benefits. But obviously those didn't last long because that was, 2003. By 2013, she's living with her parents and they're dead, and now she has nothing, and she lives in her car with her dog. Right.
I mean, it sparks a whole bunch of other stuff. Like,
yes.
Why aren't we taking care of?
Yes, it does.
And a $950 a month in even the Antelope Valley isn't enough to get you anything.
Right.
Anything.
So you live in your car and you join a gym, and she goes back and forth between there's a Vons grocery store and a Subway, and she says, I can get everything I need there. Yeah, I know. Obviously she can't, but these tips that come in. A woman claimed to know where his body was buried. A man contacted the sheriff's department saying, I was present when he was murdered. A third person said, I saw someone return his truck to the Devil's Punchbowl parking lot and then walk in the direction of two armed bikers. Mm-hmm. So there's, so many theories. It's incredible. So Darren Hager was a deputy with the sheriff's department, and he was very responsible for a lot of like DEA busts. He was on the task force for, the untouchables, trying to break them down. He had been flown to Washington to be given an award, the DEA's highest honor, the Administrator's Award for Investigative Excellence for his work. Even Lee Baca said in a press conference, his level of commitment and performance rises clearly to the level of exemplary performance. And he thought that John Aujay was murdered by deputies. So he won't give it up. He, brings his information about Rick Ingalls to Internal Affairs, to his superiors, and they were like, you know what? You have recklessly accused Rick Ingalls of these criminal activities, and you've conducted a personal investigation, which you're not allowed to do. Right. That should have gotten him a 15-day suspension. Instead, they fired him.
Wow.
He's fired. He was 36. He and his wife filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy in 2010, and it takes almost a decade after he was let go when he, gets this case through and said, I was, fired unduly. I was doing what I was supposed to do, which would be to report what I think happened. And even, Rick Ingalls even showed up in court to testify. It was also like murky and muddy, but I just want to let you know, May of 2018, he is awarded $4.5 million.
For being fired wrongly?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he says that he arrested a man who was an informant, and said that John Aujay had found 5 major meth labs and distributors. And he, said he provided all of these pieces of information for drug investigations, but also the rumor about, Rick Ingalls being involved in Aujay's disappearance, John Aujay's disappearance. So after all of that, he said, I couldn't get a job. My life was ruined. The jury gives him a verdict, $806,000 for past lost earnings, $1.2 million for future lost earnings, $2.5 for non-economic damages, like punitive damages. Mm-hmm. So it's $4.5 million.
Good for him.
Maybe. I mean, that's our taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
But, maybe good for him. I think it's interesting that there are a few people who don't seem mentally ill, who still believe John Aujay was murdered. And the thing is, until we have one scintilla of evidence, we're not ever going to know.
So his daughter is gone.
Yeah.
And that would be the person who would fight the longest and the hardest.
She was 5. She said, I have very few memories. I remember sleeping on his chest. Oh. She provided some of the pictures that Claire Martin had.
Okay.
And she said, all I knew was my dad was missing until I got older.
Yeah.
And now I don't know what to think. I still think he was murdered now as an adult, but I can't tell you why I think that. She did, obviously she was a child. Yeah. Unless she did her own deep dive investigation, and what are they going to tell her?
Yeah.
And Deborah Aujay is maybe not clinically, mentally ill, or maybe, I guess, if you call severe OCD a clinical mental illness, but she thinks she sees every now and then, she thinks she sees a hiker in a white truck. Like his truck wouldn't still be working. She thinks she spots him every now and then.
Right. What about his family? Are they?
I have a theory that they may have been the ones in Idaho where Chloe was staying, but I could be wrong. I find nothing about them. I don't know if he wasn't close to them. It seems like he was fairly close to his in-laws, to Deborah's family.
Right.
And then once they passed away, if you see the picture of Deborah living in her car with her dog, she does not look healthy.
Right.
You know, she does not look healthy at all. I was shocked to know that she was still alive, but Chloe was gone. And that's the thing, you know, it was one of those things Mark always talked about, the ripple effect. It isn't just, you know, one person killing themselves, or it isn't just one person being murdered. It is a huge ripple effect. A huge ripple effect.
Yeah.
And this case is, you know, so weird and still so, you know, important in the sheriff's department. It's got a big, deep, ugly legacy. It really does. And I'm surprised and shocked, but I'm happy that there are people who are still investigating it, who just won't give up. And they have nothing to go on. It's just theories. You know, when Mike Bauer said that, you know, he befriended this, you know, deputy that he questioned about, you know, John's missing person status, and he said, yeah, he got taken care of the way he should have. And it was like, what? And then later on he said, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. But he said, you know, that dog had to die. And he said, what do you mean Bosco had to die? And Claire Martin confirmed. She said he did not deny
that he had the dog killed, and said it with a straight face, apparently. Oh, no, I didn't do it.
I would never shoot a dog, but I did instruct the kennel owner to euthanize him. He was a menace to society.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's when it comes to investigating law enforcement,
yeah,
you know, it's dangerous.
It's ugly.
And it's that, you know, that code of silence.
Mike Bauer, you know, lives in Montana now with his wife, and he had approached Claire Martin when he knew she was writing this article with a fake name and said, I used to work with the sheriff's deputy's office. And she said that didn't give her any, you know, peace of mind. And it took him about 6 weeks of constant emailing her before he began to trust her. And they developed a rapport. And she goes up to visit him in Montana and is, you know, very secretive about everything. And she said she walks into this beautiful log cabin, and there's a sign by the door that says, please remove your ski mask and unload your gun upon entering.
That's funny.
Yeah. And he said that was a gift from the FBI when he was working on the Olympics or something, as a counterterrorism thing during the Olympics. And he says he thinks there were two. He said a deputy and his sidekick. He feels this deputy and the sidekick murdered John Aujay. And he said, I just feel straight up he's a sociopath. That's the only thing I can say, is that he's a sociopath and he killed him. So let's go over the theories. He was hiking in this very odd terrain, and there was an accident, and he was injured and never found.
Right.
Pretty weird. Scavengers could have scattered his bones, but there was no clothing, his backpack, nothing. So shoes survive because they're typically rubber. They last a lot longer than, you know, clothing, and definitely longer than the human body. He
So that's a no.
Probably. I think a probably no. He killed himself, leaving no note, his gun in his truck or not, conflicting reports. Killed himself and threw himself into a crevice to never be found.
Oh, yeah, because if he killed himself, where is he?
Right.
And he filled his gas tank, and he's planning and training for this big hilly terrain run. And he's got this 5-year-old who makes him smile, and nothing else seems to.
Right.
Okay, so that suicide thing didn't sound right to me. Just after 6 days, no body, no note, no nothing, you call it a suicide. That sounds odd. So let's move on to theory 3.
Well, I can tell you that someone in law enforcement said, I've seen it 100 times. I, investigated a case of a guy who went missing on his boat, and we show up and his wallet, his keys, his gun, whatever, are lying out on a counter. No suicide note, no nothing. He just jumped in the water and died. Could be. It sounds like people in law enforcement see it a lot. Look, I don't have a whole lot of experience with people who kill themselves. The only one I can think of off the bat, and it was awful, was a comic named Richard Jenny, who was phenomenal. He had a TV show back in the old days on the UPN called Platypus Man, and he was an amazing comic. And his girlfriend in their apartment in Hollywood is a Sunday morning. She's making him breakfast. She's making bacon and eggs, and he's like, I'm going to take a shower. And he goes in the shower and shoots himself. I guess so it's not that much of a mess in the shower. Mm-hmm. That's, he didn't leave a note. She didn't know. He was depressed. Things weren't going well. He was far too young. They're now coming out saying like Robin Williams hung himself because of the Lewy body dementia because it affected his brain, not the Parkinson's.
Right.
His brain wasn't working right. And that's why he did it. So I don't think everyone has to leave a note.
No, I don't think so either. But my concern is that 6 days later, we call it a suicide with nothing necessarily pointing to suicide. And
nobody investigating other things that could have been run down in the immediate, if it, a disappearance.
Yeah.
That was the thing that the people who are still fighting for a different outcome feel. It was like, look, this was mishandled from the second that it happened. So I don't know what happened to John Aujay. You don't know what happened to John Aujay. And I don't want to give you the information to call the sheriff's department. Not that I don't think it wouldn't get investigated because they had, a task force. But what I want to give you is the information here because it can be anonymous. And I bet you there are some people listening who maybe their theories are all wrong. But if you have a theory about what happened to John Aujay back in 1998, please call the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. You can email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. You can contact us on any social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And if you know anything, I hope you're not afraid to say something, because even though Chloe's gone, Deborah is still here. And even if Deborah isn't here, we need to know what happened. If you have an idea at all, I hope you'll reach out and let someone know, because I know there are people that are going to keep looking. They're going to keep looking, and who knows what they'll find, but they're going to keep looking. And more cowbell.